Welcome to LinkedIn Live on Cybersecurity and Hybrid Cloud in 2024, provided to you by Acodis. Our two experts will share with you their views and updates on the latest trends and also equip you with some helpful hints and on how to move ahead. My name is Hayo. Our focus today is around business development for these types of B2B solutions into various geographies, into various industries. Therefore, I'm as excited as probably you are to learn from today's session. Where's the value? How does it differentiate? The audience, please feel free to provide your questions and comments. The team looks forward to be hearing from you. All right, let's take it on. James, I know you are really a long-term at Acodis. So besides some highlights about you, please give a quick snapshot on Acodis 2. Where does it head to?
Thank you, Hayo. Lovely to be here. Thank you for everybody for joining us today. So a little bit of background on myself first, I guess, is that I've been leading the AWS cloud capability within Acodis and Modus before that for the better part of 10 years. Previously, I was the head of security for AWS for Australia and New Zealand for 3 years. And I've been in the IT industry for, must be about 35, 40 years now. I've spent a lot of that time also volunteering my efforts as one of the Debian Linux developers, where the ability to have personal cybersecurity is a paramount skill. We've been doing public key cryptography for all of that time as part of the security in that volunteer effort. As part of the Acodis group, I guess, worldwide, it's an organization which is effectively the professional services and engineering division of the Adecco group, currently in over 30 countries with something like 50,000 people around the world. And our clients range from mid-size organizations through to multinational enterprises, governments in multiple countries around the world, being helped with the full range of skills between cloud and software development to engineering, and even helping, for example, Mercedes with some of their stuff that they've been doing. Obviously, we have a deep relationship with them. And so, yeah, there's a good chance that the services that we're using today somehow have been helped or assisted by Acodis somewhere around the world.
Certainly, definitely has a very long-term and broad established footprint there. Thank you for that. So how about you, Presley? We know each other for well beyond a decade. What's important to know about you?
My name is Presley Prescott, guys. I'm responsible for cybersecurity here at Acodis towards the customers, developing services and solutions. As you said, we know each other for more than 10 years or more. As you know, when I first came to Germany, I wanted to build the first cloud service for, platform in Germany. That's where we met. My background goes back a long way in cybersecurity since maybe 1986, where I started with a company called 9X, now known as Verizon, designing and building services for them. But I came to Acodis, because of exactly what James just spoke about. When I look at cybersecurity, the way it's done today and in the past, and the growth around cybersecurity, I saw a great opportunity within Acodis to develop and build on top of what I was doing for many years. They have built many solutions for various industries, like James just talked about. When you talk about automotive, defense, the manufacturing industry, even law enforcement, right? They where James City sits in Australia. I think they're the better part of the cloud industry within the Acodis group, because Acodis has different vertical countries, I should say, that has specialized in certain things. And I would say Australia, Japan, they lead the industry within Acodis when it comes to AI, cloud, right? And then when you go into Germany and France, you have automotive and defense. And when you go into other countries, you have other topics. And what my goal is, as I came into Acodis, was to build on top of the things that they design and sell to their customers. So, when we talk automotive, we design almost everything from the automotive, the cockpit, to, the V motor, the V systems, right? Diagnostic systems, the AI. We have a product called AI Core and Proof Tech, which is part of our diagnostic system that we sell to all automotive systems and companies, I should say. And we can use that to enhance vehicle security, and also build something that I'm very excited about called the VSOC for automotive because we sit on the product. And so I'm very excited to be at a CODIS. I don't want to go too far into all these things right now, but based on all the technologies around the world, even the law enforcement technology that James talks about, that we're embedded in many agencies all over the world. I'm excited to bring all these solutions together, and which is what we are doing, so that we can offer it to our customers and show them the value of what Ocodis has as a company, as a group, and within the different countries, and bringing all the different technologies from different countries together to show value to customers, because I think that's always the biggest issue with the industry. Everyone wants to make money. Yes, money is great, but how do you make money, or how do you make sure your customer is happy? Providing services and solutions that provide value, and that's where I think Acodis wins because of their large history around this topic, as James mentioned.
Perfect. Thank you much. Thank you both. So I think let's maybe start with a bold statement. The best defense is good offense. How about, based on that statement, James? Do you support that? How valid is it in your context, in your focus?
I think from the examples I've seen where proactive application of security updates, not only is it a recommendation that we see come out of multiple governments around the world in their cybersecurity briefings that they give to industry partners such as ourselves, being proactive means that you don't have the problems that you would otherwise see. In our managed services business, we try to always ensure that security updates are being applied in a timely manner, particularly if we're seeing active exploits of things that are happening in the wild immediately. We want to make sure that we've got the operational excellence, the dexterity in the digital systems that we're running for our clients to be able to take those changes on rapidly and not have a huge outstanding technical debt. And I think for some organizations, they try to minimize the amount of effort they're spending on maintaining their digital systems, which seems quite ironic because a lot of those digital systems are the absolute mission critical for those organizations. It's their line of business. It's what they do. And I think having the correct amount of care and attention and proactiveness happening to ensure those digital systems are fit for purpose and addressing such a wide range of potential issues that are in there, it seems obvious that you want to make sure these things are well maintained across the life cycle of those applications, not just when they were created years ago.
Okay, thank you. Presley, anything to add?
Well, I mean, I think James make a good point, but I want to add something else. I think when you say the best defense is offense, I think the best is even better than offense is being able to predict something, right? So, we all focus on predict predicting something. We always focus on like responding. I think that's the biggest problem in the industry, I should say, right? We're always responding or reacting instead of being proactive or predictive, right? When it comes to security. And I think what I was mentioning earlier with the solutions, that we have developed in our Codis, especially in Australia with the data analytics platform that they use, which has various actually modules. And we have an intellectual property called Source, which we use for law enforcement, and also integrate into the solutions that we use for XCDC, and our partnerships with Microsoft, and also the technologies that we develop. This also helps us to actually be more than proactive, right? And instead of reactive, because now we are sitting on the device and actually seeing things with all the stuff that James mentioned about. We have all the data or all the intelligence from different law enforcement agencies around the world. We are now able to actually use that and create our data models and use cases that allows us to actually stay in front instead of being reactive, right? Or doing the prevent, detect, respond, right? Which is what everyone is doing in the industry. And I think we need to take that extra step forward instead of doing that prevent, detect, respond, right? So for me, that's where I come in. I think that, the best defense is a good offense.
Okay, thanks. I think I would like to expand it a little bit further, especially since Akkodis has such a great and extensive practice about software development itself. How do you make sure that, over the life cycle of even runtimes, libraries, protocols, whatever, that the software development actually does consider cyber security, cyber defense appropriately? So want to expand on that maybe a bit, Presley?
It goes back to what I was just talking about, right? You need to actually have a good understanding of your business and what software is being developed, because I think most people go to GitHub and all these repositories to download and build software. But do you actually check what's inside the codes that you're building? I know one of the topics around all these libraries is how you also patch. How do you do, check? How do you do the check the chain and where all these software came from originally, right? No one does that. We just download, we build our code, and then we push out. And there's a lot of repositories that can be malicious. I think we need to also actually find a way to do some sort of thing, better around DevOps. I think companies need to do more DevOps than they do today, because that's one of the biggest problem I see in the whole life cycle SDLC solution around software development. There's not enough DevOps. I think that's one thing that needs to be changed in the industry. From my side, we should actually be actually looking more into GitHub and also all these AI solutions that people are using to build codes, right? Because what do you do with an AI solution that build a code that basically um, has no real information? It's basically collecting data and helping you to stand up something, but no real expertise behind that, right? So that's a big issue for me. James, I know you know more about this because this is your background. So
I
I would
think
say
I think
over to you.
the DevOps piece is critical, and that is what is leading to a lot of the agility that we're seeing in organizations these days, where they have software that they're developing themselves or with a partner such as ourselves, having the agility to be able to iterate quickly at low overhead cost, low overhead effort to do so. But further than that is to actually then integrate into that change pipeline, automation of testing, automation of checking that, oh, I can see in the code base that you're running, you've got a library. I can check to see if there's currently any registered vulnerabilities in global catalogs that are available of these things to give you a risk rating. I can also tell you if there's a new release and if that's got improvements. And I think in what we look at the full stack of software being deployed, keeping that as evergreen as possible is one of the ways to address that. Making sure that we don't suffer from bugs which have been known for a long time being a vulnerability. There's always going to be an arms race here that there's going to be vulnerabilities that are discovered, but being found in a compromising position for things that have been potentially fixed years ago is a worse situation to be in. I'm thinking back to, for example, the heartbeat issue that happened for load balancers going back about 11 years now. That was a vulnerability that was often found in load balancers where they could basically dump their entire memory. For some organizations, that was a remediation that happened within hours. For some, that was days, months, and I'm sure there are still hardware out there that has not yet been patched because people haven't seen that they need to actually look after all of the tiers of their application, including something like a load balancer. But in the software stack, it's just as valid. Every component needs to be checked and reviewed with as little effort as possible. I'm taken back to being a Perl programmer in my earlier years where laziness and hubris was one of the talents of a programmer. It takes a lot of effort to be that lazy. And so you set up these automations of systems to do amazingly complicated and long-running things automatically every time. And once you've automated these things, they become easy. And they become a mechanism that enforces the fact that you aren't going to have regressions. And I don't know if you guys remember, if you think back maybe 10, 15 years ago in software development, if you got a new version of software, you'd be worried that old bugs had been reintroduced. that it would be a failed build. And of course, with that, when all of the ITIL procedures, for example, for testing that new build because it might be faulty, because all of the changes have been wrapped up into this one, what I call a big bang, a big change. These days, what we see is small incremental changes, which typically have no regressions because everything is tested automatically in that DevOps CI/CD pipeline. It does mean there are a lot of updates coming through, and you get to pick and choose when you're going to incorporate those. But you can have a higher degree of confidence that the change is not going to be an incident. And I think that's what we had the last 40 years worth of change management, was around avoiding incident by doing as little as possible, instead of avoiding exploit by keeping things as maintained as possible, if that makes any sense.
Perfect. Thank you. I think I want to expand a little bit the scope, assuming that many of the audience are actually also coming from manufacturing environments. So when I started my career, it was actually around design of data centers for investment banking and similar type of environments, and deeply impressed about the IT power that is packed together there. But over the years, I actually got into manufacturing, and those networks, those IT environments are huge. Biggest network that I saw actually as a single site was over 65,000 nodes of physical IP devices. And they all connected, via PLCs. And what I'm seeing there, these are obviously, with large environments, very well maintained. But relating to what you were just referring to, James, those PLCs run flawlessly, and they're designed and developed to run flawlessly. So they very often are hidden, and they must not be touched. And don't take them down. And as they run so well, they don't get their maintenance and don't get the security protection. Very often are not even visible on the ITIL or asset management overviews. The cost of taking them down, can be easily measured, because it directly affects the manufacturing process, and therefore they, very often customers postpone those.
But hey, I think also sometimes the design of those solutions is that there's a single solution, a single device. They're not designed with pairs or three of something that can actually also administer that function.
Yes.
And I think having a single point of failure is always an interesting issue, because yes, you could have an incident or an issue, and downtime could really affect you. Obviously, you want to minimize downtime at every possible step. You want to automate any kind of distribution of firmwares that are going to happen there, and have it recover as quickly as possible, if not transparently. Obviously, that's very difficult to do when there's a single device. But I think also in a lot of those networks, which really are operational technology networks, OT networks, the bar really over history has not been set as high as what IT networks have had. We haven't seen the broad application of end-to-end cryptography and security in OT networks because of the approach that was taken, that the networks were segregated. They were private.
Wait, I have a question.
They weren't, were they?
No, they weren't. Actually, even let's be honest, none of these networks actually, they're segregated by a firewall or some kind of ring fence, as we would say. But at the end of the day, they're still connected to the internet, because there are servers that are Linux or some sort of servers or Windows device that they're actually using to actually run their infrastructure, right? But it's supposedly hardened, supposedly the firewall or the network that is protecting it was configured properly. But if we know better, most of these organizations or most of these infrastructure are still, as you mentioned, they're still running on old, outdated, outpatch, out whatever. Even the firewall is not even up.
Include the firewall. Yes, exactly. That's the problem. They don't get patched.
So everything is connected. It's not really. So this is another example of a gap that we have in cybersecurity right here, where, okay, we have this infrastructure, which is an old OT or IoT SCADA ICS system running in a so-called segregated infrastructure, but it's not actually segregated, and at the same time, not up to date, right? So it goes back to the whole discussion we're having right now. So if it's not up to date, or it's not patched, or there's no, what's the word, redundancy that we're looking for.
Redundancy.
Yeah,
Mm.
how do we actually stop hackers from taking over
But even
using?
those networks that we think were segregated, we've seen, and I think it's a classic training piece of dropping a couple of USB sticks at the back door of the bank or outside the power station where somebody goes, "Oh, look, a free USB stick. I'll try that." And of course, there's a Trojan or a rat or remote access tool or something installed on that. It has been used before. I think we saw it in about 2010 with the Stuxnet attack in uranium processing in the Middle East. That was one of the ways that Stuxnet got in there, and that was a highly targeted attack, looking at the exact PLCs and firmwares that were on the centrifuges there. And we've seen many things like that since. I think in the Ukraine, we had 20% of the power network knocked out there from a similar approach. And of course, was it a year ago we had the Colonial Pipeline shut down across southern United States where fuel
I
was
was
no longer being distributed?
3 years ago, but
3 years
you
ago,
know,
time flies.
even adding to what you're saying, right? Even let's talk. You're talking about all these management systems. These are all systems that also we have tools that our IT people use to manage them, which is like we all know about the famous SolarWinds. So
Mm, mm,
this is another issue that actually most organizations are not paying attention to. All their management tools, hackers are using artificial intelligence or whatever way of taking over your management system and actually being come in your IT organization and taking over your infrastructure, spinning up infrastructures within your infrastructures, and you don't even know it, right? So all these things are the main issue around the topic we're talking about in these gaps in IoT and cybersecurity. Because for me, the perfect infrastructure to set up anything would be a IoT or SCADA infrastructure, which is ring fence because it's not being looked at as much because no one wants to touch it, right? So I can take over a network as a hacker and I can spin up maybe 3 or 4 servers. It looks normal traffic going in and out, and I can use that to do Bitcoin, whatever, right? Sell people's
mm.
information. So all of this infrastructure that we say that are protected or ring fenced, they also needs to be assessed on a at 2 or 3 times a year. And I always talk about something called compromise assessment because most people do pen testing. They always want to pen test these network or pen test their application, pen test their systems and the infrastructure. But at the end of the day, I have vulnerabilities that I need to fix, and 9 out of 10 times these vulnerabilities are not getting fixed, right? So
Mm.
there is one issue because people are overworked. Most IT organization, even our IT organization, can't even keep up with the amount of work that we have, right? So this is one issue. And then on top of that, 90% of companies that have been breached, you just don't know it. Because when a hacker take over your infrastructure, they sit there. A real hacker, we're talking about, not the script kiddies that go buy stuff in the darknet from the hackers and then come back into your network and trip the wire. We're talking about real hackers. They come into your infrastructure using sophisticated tools or even your own management systems, whether it's SolarWinds, PTRTG, I would say even TeamViewer. I can call a whole bunch of names because all these companies are known to be breached and their software has been taken over and used to create crimes, right? Commit crimes. So um, these are things that we need to pay attention to. And why I say why I mention compromise assessment is one of the things that I think is the best thing in the business. You do a compromise assessment over a pen test. Yes, pen test is needed because it's what show you that you have vulnerabilities around your product, your solutions, or your services. But a compromise assessment actually help you to see that you've been compromised, that you have hackers doing living on the land, lateral movements, building server farms within your infrastructure, crypto mining, crypto infrastructure, right? So I've worked on many investigations and cases where I've gone to a customer and I said, okay, I do a compromise assessment. We find 30 or 40 servers. Oh, 10 of them are real, 5 of them should have been decom, and the rest is the hackers building whatever. So most companies don't understand this. They always, everyone always think that they're safe and they have all the most sophisticated tools. They have their SIM, they have their SOC Great. But if I'm a hacker, I know how to bypass all these things because I know what the use cases are. I get all the threat intelligence from everywhere and I can get all the CVEs and then I know what you're looking for. So when I write my code, and nowadays, what's the new business? AI, right? So I can now look for those things and detect and what's not detect them. What's the word I'm looking for? Circumvent is the right word.
Mm,
Circumvent all these solutions, right? So we need to pay attention to all these topics, and that's where I come in with that. That's where we as a coders come in with our solution that we built with the Australian team with Saucy.
Maybe let's pick up on that. I mean, we've been coming from the context now of manufacturing environments, talking IoT, in medical devices, business, all these are getting also connected to the network. We have the IT departments that often carry the responsibility to ensure protection against all these vulnerabilities and threats. And then how do we make sure that we actually manage and get this complex undertaking really being taken care of? I mean, here and there we tapped into discussion of the usage of AI, but in the end, how do we really leverage that? So what's both of your recommendations there? Brez, you want to tee it off or?
I mean, I'm a big fan of AI, as you know. I studied that a lot, and I've developed on AI, but it's not an artificial intelligence is like a human being. A fool without a tool is still a
hmm
fool, right? So if you have no language models, which is what people should be actually, or the market should actually be talking about, everyone is branding AI in so many ways, but the language model is actually what is important around AI. If you have the right data sets or the right data models so that AI can learn and grow, that's the key. AI is a helpful thing for the future, but it can be a hurtful thing. So you have to actually pick your poison. And in cybersecurity, we also use it to prevent and help leverage the costs of human beings that we don't have the resource for or the know-how and the knowledge. But if you're actually building something with AI, you need to also have the knowledge and the experience and the know-how to build the models so that the AI can work in the right way, right? We just talked about how hackers can build tools to circumvent your solution, and they're using AI for that. So you also need to be just as smart to keep up with the hackers, because that's the challenge. This is an arms race right now between language models, between the hackers, and the language models between the cybersecurity expert. You know, and that's the biggest challenge around AI right now. People are using it in so many loose ways. Um, it's it's unfortunate, and I think even with the everyone is, how should I say? Oh yeah, we have expertise in AI and developing solutions around AI. I think Acodis has a big organization, award-winning organization, not just in AWS, but in Microsoft, sitting in Australia,
mm
Japan. James, you know that because you sit in that organization. We have developed solutions around that, being used by law enforcement today in multiple different countries and all different levels of agencies. Additionally, we are using it for connecting to electric grid, monitoring electric services around a whole country. We're also looking at it from even from our smart city, because we're developing all the solutions around smart city, smart technology, smart battery. We can also integrate our analytics platform with AI solutions that you guys have done. So I think AI is a great thing, but you need the right know-how, the right people, smart enough people to write the right language models. I mean, there's a lot of smart people in the world. I'm not taking that away from everyone, but there's not enough day-to-day expertise in the industry when it comes to AI, and everyone is using AI to build AI. Oh, let me use an AI to develop, write a code for me. How, how does that work? That's a vulnerability itself, because if we go back, you know, a Gen AI is just taking things off the internet and then putting it together. I
and
don't even
that
want to go into it. I'll let James
that
talk.
is part of the danger, I think, is blindly trusting what Gen AI is generating, and the gen word is the key piece in there. And of course, those models, they could be being poisoned with bad data. So for example, a developer that asks the generative AI to create some code that they want to implement could already be vulnerable to exploit without even knowing it. So you still need to have the intelligence and expertise to vet these things. There was a few other things I just want to tap on as well, which was things like defense in depth for these digital systems. That's a key thing. And as much as we talk about firewalling, the best situation to be in is to be micro-segmenting and having out-of-band firewalling around resources and limiting that lateral movement that you talked about. I mean, one of the most amusing things I saw a while back was somebody talking about automatically responding to lateral movement from application servers that should not be talking to each other. Well, if they already should not be talking to each other, why can they? Surely you should have scoped that out of the project as early as possible and go, look, there's no lateral movement required from server A to server B. They should be ring fenced away from each other. And also then coming to the next piece is then
I want to tap into that.
Yeah.
Hold on. I didn't mean to disrupt you, but this is part of our solution, right? That we develop here at Acodis with the XCDC solution, where we actually took something from what you were just talking about, and with all the development life cycle. So most people talk about threat models, right? You do with a threat modeling of an application, you try to figure out every way that you can hack it. And so what we did with our solution, we built all our cybersecurity models to threat model every asset, right? So for example, what you just mentioned, 2 applications, we will be threat modeling that. And if we see that lateral movement, we can actually block it, right?
Yeah.
So
well, it should already be blocked to start with.
Yeah,
if
but
it's part of the model, don't let it.
Agreed, but most companies don't have the
Don't have that
expertise.
exactly. And
And
that,
so
that I think is
where
where they're
we come-
developing talent and capability. The second thing I was going to say was around immutable infrastructure and disposable infrastructure. And this is where instead of having long-lived application servers that typically would have names that people grow attached to, these should all be disposable assets. The data model that is on these application servers should be secured into the right back-end resources, and the actual processing application servers should be able to be terminated at any time. And it really does change the model when you know that every time you're replacing that application server, it's coming from a known good image. There's no longer the living on the land exploit that we're seeing there, unless of course your source image is compromised. And of course, that's where things like a software supply chain analysis comes in, which is stuff we've been working on for clients as well, to identify everything that goes into the image they're running their virtual machines from or their application software from, to be able to have that confidence to know that, yeah, this is what we're signing off on. This is what is supposed to be in here. And this is how we're managing it. So all of these layers come together. The AI analytics that's looking at the events and correlating that from other environments as well, particularly where you've got corresponding industries which might have similar threat vectors or similar approaches being used, along with properly actually thinking through how you change the way that you run these digital systems and take advantage of the dexterity and operational excellence to be able to rapidly modify and apply what today's best practice is, because today's best practice is potentially different to yesterday. And if there's one thing we can say, it'll be different in the future again. So the only constant in life is change. And so if we know we're going to change, we just have to be prepared to adopt that change as rapidly, as quickly,
Perfect.
and with the lowest cost possible.
Thank you for that. Talking about change, I'm going to be tuning maybe a little bit the topic, and has multiple angles now. It's about the mass data that is being used to learn from, and that is being applied for further applications. That data that is residing in a certain location, though, has economic and has geopolitical discussions. So what I'm aiming at is maybe on some feedback from both of you about data sovereignty. I think that's something that a lot of our audience, people's actually interested in. How do you conquer that? It's another very complex scenario. So please share some feedback there from your side, James.
So this is one of the things that we've actually assisted a number of clients with over the years, particularly where we've taken critical line of business solutions and and remodeled them and relaunched them into the cloud is to understand exactly where their data is. And a lot of that comes down to the cybersecurity controls that we put in place, the data controls, the governance that the client wishes to have. Because quite often, especially with public sector organizations, there's a strong desire to have the data sitting in their own jurisdiction for legal purposes. There's typically no technical limit. It's purely a logistical or a legal requirement that they have or pursue to have that might not actually properly exist. And that requires, I guess, a lot of detailed conversations between our client and the hyperscaler cloud provider or the SaaS provider that we're using. Because obviously with our services, we look after full stack solutions across the range for our clients. And sometimes we're administering things like Office 365 tenancies or Salesforce tenancies or whatever it happens to be. And those conversations then have to happen with the SaaS provider as well to understand where is the client's content, their data being stored? What is the replication? What is the backups? What is the secure handling of the backups? What's the destruction of those backups? What about the backups that you make versus what we make in that environment? There's a lot of deep conversations. I remember I was talking to a client once of one of the hyperscale providers, and they had been told that backups are taken of the environment, and they thought nothing more of it. And they hadn't engaged us to help them. They just had that sign off, yep, backups are taken of the cloud environment. And about a year later, they went and asked about a restore, and they were told, no, the backups that we take are for us. They're not for you. You have to back up your own data. So that shared responsibility model in the cloud, which covers security, but it covers everything, really has to be well understood. And of course, sometimes some providers might not want to shine a light on something that requires you to do more work, or your provider, partner, I should say. And that's, I think, where we've helped a lot of customers understand that responsibility, where the residual sits, where that line of demarcation is, particularly if we're looking at things like compliance programs, like PCI compliance or NIST or whatever that happens to be. There is some things that cloud providers do, but that doesn't mean that you are instantly, congratulations, you've got to pass on that. No. There is work that remains in your domain, in your hands, to dovetail into what the infrastructure may have. And of course, you can define very secure cloud infrastructure and you can define very insecure cloud infrastructure. It's completely up to you with what you do with those Lego building blocks of cloud. And of course, those SaaS providers, it's partly their responsibility. So you want to be able to question them and ask them, what's their approach? What are their procedures? What happens if the international cables get cut? Are they able to operate in that situation? Because we have seen that. I think I read a report actually this morning, it was saying that 3 of the 5 subsea cables going to Vietnam are currently severed. Boats do drag anchors and certain national submarines do go and pick them up once in a while. Incidents do happen. So these are good questions to ask because it's your data, the client's data. They have to have control and access to it at all times.
James, I want to add something. I think you left out around SOC 2.
Yeah.
Not Security Operations Center, but SOC 2 is a compliance around cloud or data sovereignty. Is one of the topics that you mentioned on a higher level, which is around the compliance. There's a lot of different compliance. Also, the customer or you as an owner of a cloud environment take into consideration, right? Not, as you said, 90% of us think that the provider would do everything for us, but you also get hit with the compliance topics, right? Whether it's SOC 2 or the new one, which is that we talked about
NIST 2,
which is the new regulation
in Europe.
Well, it's going to be more than Europe. It's actually going to be pushed out towards everyone, right? It's actually, and then you have the PCI DSS where you have payment card systems, multiple different, providers that have systems all over. As a customer, it can be running in the cloud, as especially today, right? A lot of these PCI DSS organized companies are running stuff in the cloud because everyone's running in the cloud environment.
It's a default these days.
Yep. How do you protect these things? How do you segment them? How do you understand what is your roles, what is your responsibility, what is the responsibility of your third party provider, right? And are they actually being compliant? Are they apply? Because at the end of the day, you get hit with the compliance, and then you have to actually check. And most
Mm.
people also don't do very good vendor management, right? Most organizations fail at that, and I think that's the biggest issue I see a lot in companies. We hire, a lot of companies outsource their business to third party, and they have no in-house knowledge of what the third party is doing. So no one is actually doing the checks and balances with their third party providers around all the compliance regulations to make sure that they actually providing what they need, and also understanding their own needs, right, as a company. And I think we definitely need to actually, with organizations around the sovereign cloud, is, as you mentioned, is also around cost, right? It depends.
Mm.
You know more about this than I do. Sovereign cloud, if you go into the sovereign cloud, if you're in the public sector, it's cost more because it's only for you. And if you're in a public cloud where there's more people, it
Who
becomes.
knows? I guess as the pricing's become available for these things, that's one of the things, is what price is that confidence? Is that value to you? And I think, as I said before, with change, the only constant in life is change. All of those compliance programs are going to change. And as you mentioned, what I'm going to say is the weirdest phrase I've ever seen. One of my favorite compliance programs is PCI DSS, and version 4 coming out now, the implications it has to be uplifted on so many services and solutions that we use today, particularly if anyone online has ever done a financial transaction online. There are some very specific guidance which comes out in PCI DSS 4 around not just the level of cryptography that was used. No, that's very DSS 3.2. But now around things like the very prescriptive what JavaScript is allowed to execute where on your web infrastructure. It's good stuff because there have been exploits on this stuff. And I think PCI has done a fantastic job of shining a light on this and getting organizations to try and address the most vulnerable place where they've been exploited, which is on payment card information. But actually, it sets a good bar as to, if that's good enough for payment information, why don't we just apply that level of security across basically everything we do?
but
It makes it simpler.
but it goes, but the payment infrastructure is what we were just talking about, right? They're
Mm,
third party, most of them are outsourced to third party vendors, and they're not protecting themselves or compliant because everyone wants to make money. There's so many third
hmm
party vendors that pop up out of nowhere, and at the end of the day, most companies want to, bottom line, right? We take the cheapest one, but in the end,
mm.
you pay for what you get, right? So, you know,
There's different ways to compete in that market, and I think there's cheap, and there's good, and there's fast. It's kind of that old triangle of needs.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, it's the same in every industry, right? Even in cybersecurity or any
mm,
IT, all right? You pay for what you get, right? If you pay
mm,
for cheap, you get cheap. If you pay for quantity, you get quantity. If you pay for quality, you get quality, right? So at the end of the day, it's like that's what you get.
mm.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I think just in consideration, also a bit of time, and to summarize, James, give us a quick summary of the offering to support on what we've been discussing so far, and yeah, then I guess Presley, also from your side.
I'd say that the capability within Akotis, and as much as we call out a few countries, actually we're delivering solutions and services in multiple countries with a combination of engineers and staff on the ground in those countries, and also from our global operations delivery centers across Eastern Europe and India, with a similar level of control across all of those things. And as even on site with our clients with national cybersecurity clearances. That's a key piece and a key differentiator for us, is to have engineers with that level of clearance so that we can actually handle the data and solutions that we're looking at. And then with our developers being able to implement and operate solutions that are secured and functionally correct for our clients over a long-term engagement. I'm thinking of, multi-decades we've been doing this for some organizations. And the good news is that when they end up in regulators' good books of having strong cybersecurity over the long period, it's a great position for us to be in, because none of us want to end up with clients and organizations on the front page of the New York Times or Le Monde where there have been issues. And I don't want to name any names at the moment, but I can think of a few in the last week or so, which might be in the entertainment industry, that have been there. So I guess excellence in cybersecurity and managed services in cloud across the spectrum from I guess the blue team operations to red team and SOCs and sitting adjacent to the data streams. We've got solutions and services that we've developed and have been running for a long time with particular expertise in a set of verticals, which Presley, I'll let you go through.
Yeah, wow, you throw that on my lap. Okay. I take it like that. Well, I'm very excited. As I said, I came here, and when you look at the plethora of solutions that we have in this company, I mean, it's so immersed. Sometimes I think our people don't even know what we have, right? We have so much, nobody knows what we have. So, my vision when I came here, I just looked at all the solutions. I fell in love with Australia because they built something that I already built, right? The data analytics platform that they built was similar to something that I already developed. And I said, okay, why redo it? We can win. Everything is there. We just have to put the pieces together, right? So when I looked across the organization, you have technologies in every vertical that you have built that actually give me that data from a cybersecurity perspective that actually push us way in front of the rest of the industry. We have designed, engineered, and built all these solutions. Now with the Australian team and the guys from Japan, the data analytics solution, we can embed it into all the solutions that we have within the company, right? If I talked about Proof Tech as an example for automotive diagnose everything that we do within automotive, we can actually embed our analytics systems and do a VSOC for automotive, right? There's no one doing that right now. Everyone takes the information and send it to the cloud, do it the old way, use case, blah, blah. We can run it on device. Similar with endpoints or partnership with Microsoft, right? Where we're building out XCDC platform where we connect into them all the Microsoft endpoints or Defender solutions and being able to actually sit on the device and not use cases, which we're removing that whole mean time to response where, I have an alert, and then I have to do an investigation, which is one of the reasons why things take longer, right? And then use cases, I can change that in 2 minutes. So everyone is still doing that SIM, SOC, SOAR, XDR. Great, but too much data with not enough knowledge, know-how. So for me, as I explained with the data analytics solution that we have, and we have the expertise with data models, we can now do threat modeling, take threat intelligence and turn it from taxi and sticks into real machine learnable language, which is actually better for, AI or machine learn or the models, language models, and then use that to actually enhance our security solutions and services. We also develop a product called Source that it's a award-winning law enforcement product that everyone, a lot of agencies are using. That's part of our investigation forensic platform within our XCDC. We pulled half of the engine out, so we are able to analyze solutions. So if I think about also, we have a company called Data Response that we have. They develop solutions, software solutions, firewall solutions for IoT, OT, SCADA, ICS systems. We take that and integrate our analytics platform. How can we lose as a company, right? So for me, I see huge potential opportunities with this the solutions that we have here, and what we need to do is always the customers come first, right? Every customer is different, and this is where Acodis always win, because we go and customize things or build things that our customers ask us to do. We don't take things off the shelf like everyone else do. We actually listen, sit down, understand the customer, understand what their pain points are, understand their needs, and we develop solutions for them, tailored to their needs.
That's a perfect transition for me there. Thank you, Presley. I think, just picking up on that, please share your question via this page. We will also add further contact options to us. To the experts, we will make sure that, from the areas of expertise or from the different verticals, the right people will actually respond to those. especially thank you to James and Presley. Thank you to the audience for staying with us and your interest in our cybersecurity and hybrid cloud update. We really look forward to be talking to you. Thank you for today, and have a great day.
Engineering a smarter future together.